Our next presenter is Gaspard Roche, Associate Global Head of Characters at Mikros Animation. Mikros is a global animation studio pushing the boundaries of creative storytelling. Gaspard will explore how technology and art mutually influence each other and illustrate how creative intent often drives innovation in technology and workflows. Please welcome Gaspard.
The art challenges the technology, and the technology inspires the art. This quote from John Lasseter, former CEO of Pixar, is powerful, as it implies a cycle between two concepts that we tend to oppose. Science versus art, left brain versus right brain, invent versus create. Recently, that opposition can feel even stronger with newest technologies such as generative AI or NFTs to some extent, where art ends up being summed up to a blockchain. And even now at AU, some sessions are fully focused on new technologies. And I don't complain. I'm a huge geek for that. Like, if there was a talk about how machine learning could deform that rabbit and see how it would behave if it was subject to high temperature in my Maya scene, please sign me in. That'd be fun. Because as a rigger, originally I consider myself quite a technical person. And I always thought that my main motivation was just doing better technology for better technology, or just improving our workflows, But the more I age, or the more I lose my hair, it's kind of the same thing, the more I realized that creative intentions were a strong part of my drive. How will I get this character to deform exactly how animation wants them to? And this is why I'm here today in Las Vegas. I personally thought it'd be interesting to step back a little and look at our intentions and drive for creating such technologies. And by technologies, I don't only mean new lines of code, right? I also mean new techniques or new workflows of our existing tools. And Mikros Animation is the perfect studio environment to reflect that. Mikros is a technicolor-owned French studio with a commitment to produce a wide variety of animated content, from TV shows to feature film. With our 3 studios around the world, like in Paris, Montreal, and Bangalore, we managed to deliver 13 projects just this year. Our teams are made of rich and various skill sets, and each of our features come with a very different creative style, enabling and pushing us to reinvent ourselves every time. And this is what I want to briefly elaborate with you today, about 2 movies we've made at Mikros, but are so special in their styles that drove us to push beyond our limits and improve our technology. And I want to start by talking about our experience on SpongeBob SquarePants, Sponge on the Run. SpongeBob is a peculiar show to work on, because it's a franchise that a lot of people know and love, and being able to adapt it into 3D animated characters would take a lot of work to get them to look and feel like the 2D versions of themselves. For those who don't know the 2D TV show so well, SpongeBob and most of his friends have a tendency to go crazy on their animation and expressions and silhouettes. There are simple shapes like a square, a pill, or a star, but they have key landmarks like SpongeBob's sponge holes, or Plankton Big Eye, for example. But they're still doing extreme poses while remaining recognizable at all time. And this is where the fun begins. We start by analyzing and understanding the intentions and artistic language of a 2D show. What are these landmarks each character has to respect? What makes a good and a bad pose for them? Wait a minute, are these smear frames that I see here? How are we going to do them in 3D, right? What about the framing of a camera? What makes it feel like a SpongeBob movie? What about the feel and look of the final picture? Do we need to implement 2D elements in our CG picture? We don't want to make it realistic, obviously. We still want to match the 2D version of a show, but we still want to bring something more to it. Then we start realizing that some of the answers to these questions require us to think outside of a box. Can we do it with our current tools? Do we need to do workarounds? Are these workarounds sustainable for a full-feature film? Can we make a custom plugin that would either make it sustainable or just even possible? As you can see, with a simple will to adapt SpongeBob into 3D, the brains of many people in the studio become more curious, expand their horizons, and start exploring the possibility of new techniques for the studio. For SpongeBob himself, we developed a way for the rig to make separate parts slide on his body, like his limbs, cheeks, chin, and nose. Then we worked on a custom shader on Arnold, Autodesk rendering solution, to make them blend as seamlessly as possible on Bob's face. As for his sponge holes, we did texture projections driven by rigged elements. For Plankton, we needed his mouth to be able to achieve extreme poses. So using the same technique as we used on Bob's, we made his capsule body a separate part from his arms and legs and antennas. This way, his body and face deformed through a simpler topology, allowing him to be less limited by his motion. Finally, for the smear frames, we gave the ability to animators to duplicate any parts of a geometry and get them to go through the pipeline without any issue. And we provided tools to allow them to draw with dry brushes on the final picture. This intention to bring a 2D world into 3D while keeping all the codes that give its unique identity drove us to push beyond our limits and use techniques never to be done in the studio. Let's now switch to a different and more recent project we did at Mikros. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Turtles was a different kind of beast. Here we're not trying to adapt a known look. Instead, we're trying to create something new, something unique and never seen. Recently, the recent success of Spider-Verse has created a new visual territory for us to explore and to be proposed to the audience. Since its creation, Mikros has always pushed their technology to achieve more and more stylized movies, from Asterix to Captain Underpants and SpongeBob. And with all this experience, we were ready to take on the new challenge that Nickelodeon wanted us to achieve. Jeff Rowe, the director, and his creative team wanted the movie to feel like sketches hand-drawn by a teenager on a notebook. This was our target, our creative intention that would challenge our technology, a drafty, vibrant, imperfect look. And it was going to take all our teams to work together to make this happen. The Make Painting and FX teams did a mix of 2D and 3D with animated sprites to give that amazing painterly look to our backgrounds. Something worth noting in our approach is that instead of making the Make Painting blend into a real CG environment, like we would do with a more traditional movie, we actually aimed on making our 3D characters and environment to match the very 2D look of our background paintings. To achieve this, we worked on many aspects. One of them, an important one, was all the lines, the brush strokes we wanted to have. We had to create multiple types of lines. They were either modeled directly on the character, hand-drawn in the textures, or procedurally generated with a more conventional tool line. All of them would react differently to the lighting. We even worked on a way for these lines to become thicker as they become further from camera, or have a stronger grain when closer. On the surfacing side, we developed a shader to push the limits of tone mapping with Arnold. It allowed us to give the impression that each light had its own brush stroke, providing a rich look that wasn't a simple cell shading, but something that would give the impression of speed painting. We really wanted to push the stylization directly through Arnold's renders, providing in the shading a great variety of masks for lighting and compositing to manipulate. Strong from our experience on SpongeBob, animation was able to reuse and improve some of their workflows, like animating on 2s and 3s, and use dry brushes for fast motion, like here. Instead of 2D dry brushes this time, that we would draw on the final picture, we went for 3D dry brushes, drawn on planes in Autodesk Maya. Using this allowed us to potentially tweak the camera post-animation without losing the motion lines, which was pretty useful. Finally, we wanted to avoid the use of digital motion blur. So we developed our own in Nuke, using a distortion texture, a library of paint strokes that would react to the velocity of a camera, and some extra hand-drawn on top to add a custom effect. Again, that intention to find a brand new style brought us to find solutions outside of our comfort zone. And even more here, with the achievements done with latest technologies, it inspired us to go far beyond what we could have imagined. As you can see, all these new techniques I just talked about were motivated by one main thing, our desire to create. But can you imagine, 25 years ago, it would have even been inconceivable to make movies like SpongeBob or TMNT, right? None of this would have been possible without the technology we now have access to. If I now go back to the initial quote, I can now confirm that indeed, technology did inspire us to create something new, that then allowed us to push our technology further. There is a relationship between the two worlds, and one couldn't evolve without the other. I now invite you to nurture that relationship, like we did at Mikros. If you're a developer, reach out to the artists, understand what they want and what they need. And if you're an artist, talk to the developers. Share with them what you miss for you to be able to express yourself fully. As in any relationship, communication and collaboration are the key to making sure both parties are happy and growing towards a common goal.